My name is Ulysses, but everybody calls me Sonny, and today we're going to be going over the octave systematic approach as condensedly as I possibly can, and hopefully it's going to help you in your guitar playing life. A lot of things that I'm going to be referencing are downloadable at my website. Don't worry, I don't want your email or anything. Just go to the website and download them if you need them. The octave systematic approach is based off a particular set of problems guitar players have. The first problem is how many different ways a major scale or chord can pop up on the fretboard. It's going to be a lot, and a lot of guitar players are trying to solve that problem with other systems. And I just noticed they weren't working as clearly. Another problem we have is phrasing based off of how we're being taught those systems. A lot of guitar players, when they start to play changes, keep resetting, and there's no reason to do that. But we don't know that because we're being taught in a particular way. And the other problem we're having is how we're approaching chords and reharmonization. It's based off the exact same problem we were just talking about with scales. We tend to think of the lowest note as the most important note of the chord. It's not. It's the highest note. That is the most important we should be paying attention to. So let's tackle the scale problem first. Let's say I want to play a C major scale, right? Something like this. Notice I'm not moving. That's really important. I don't want to move too much. The more I move, the more likely I am to make a mistake. So that's the pattern I come up with. The issue with this is that we're always starting from the lowest note, and that is where we're having phrasing problems. When we think of a scale, we think of the lowest note first. We should be thinking of the highest note first. That would mean that we now play the scale like this, which is good news for us. However, there's more than one way to play that scale. So I started changing or labeling them based off of what the root was doing, or where our scale is in relation to the root. Right now, this pattern is mostly behind the root. It's towards the headstock. So I called it backwards because it feels like I'm going backwards. Not necessarily backwards through the scale, backwards as I'm moving towards the headstock. I can also play the same major scale going towards the body. It's the exact same scale. And then because this feels like I'm going forward more, I called it forward. And that's really important to understand. Either my scale is mostly behind the root or in front of the root. If I'm noticing there's a bit of a mix between them, I called it static. Static meaning I'm not moving that much. So I have three different ways to play the exact same scale. This makes me less likely to repeat myself unintentionally while I'm playing. I will only move when I need to, and when I do, I know exactly which pattern that I'm in. Now, is this the best way of soloing though? Not necessarily. This is where Bobby McFerrin comes in. Bobby McFerrin has explained in his lectures that most humans naturally hear in pentatonics. This is important because that means we don't actually have to know as many scales as we think we need to. We only need to know a certain few. In this case, I'm going to stress major, minor pentatonics, as well as a particular altered and half diminished pentatonic. From those pentatonics, we can create all types of things. Now, when we do this, there's backward, then there's forward, and that's all we need. Then we do minor, right? And then we have the altered one, and then the half diminished one. If we have those pentatonics down, we can solo pretty much over any chord that we want to really efficiently. We don't have to think of any other types of scales because we already have the ones that are going to work. A lot of us like to think of superimpositions. I'll go up a certain interval and play another pattern or another scale to get the note that I'm looking for. Not if we're thinking this tiny set of fragments. It's way better that way. I can control my phrasing because I'm not thinking of so many things at the same time. Every note is exactly what I think it's going to be. So let's take a hypothetical that you have all of the patterns, major pentatonic, minor pentatonic, the altered pentatonic, and your half diminished pentatonic down. Now we have to start to move. And this is where we have two different types of systems. Our first system is based off of the octave. So let's say I have that major pentatonic. Now I'm on the G string. I have options. I can continue to go backwards, and now I have more octaves. Or I'm back on the G string and I can go forward, and now I have two different ways I can play this 3-octave scale now. This is fantastic, and it also means that I'm not locked into one particular place. A lot of these systems are not, they go from one position to the next position, and technically those positions are not supposed to intermingle. So in this particular system, you actually practice all of those variations so you're used to moving. The other transportation system that we have is based off of 3 notes and 4 notes per string. So if I'm playing a major scale, right, I'm going to use 4 notes per string. This is going to help me keep the movement down. I'm only going to be shifting over 1 or 2 frets. And if the movement is down, I'm less likely to make a mistake. If I'm going to be doing a pentatonic, I'm going to be using 3 notes per string. This means I now have way more options when I hit that C. I can stay here, I can go up again, right? Or I can use 3 notes per string, right? Or I can go up. Notice I use my transportation system of 3 notes per string into the forward position of my major pentatonic. I'm able to move more clearly and under more control because I know exactly where I'm at and not moving blindly. I know exactly why I'm moving. I want to move to get to this note, and this is the most efficient way to do it. If I need to build new systems, I totally can. And that's the one thing I really like about the octave systematic approach. Other systems start to come out. If I want to do caged is inside here. I just put them together with the fragments I already know. If I want to make 3 notes per string, I can do that. If I want to use the guitar positioning system, I could totally do that. All other systems can come out of this particular system. Now, let's talk about chords. Many guitar players, including myself, were taught from the lowest note of the chord to the highest note of the chord. And it's to help us with bar chords, which makes sense when we're trying to gig. We have to think of the chord that we're being paid to play immediately, not necessarily all the crazy ways we can phrase it or voice it. This does not help us when we start doing chord melodies or reharmonization, because now we're thinking from the lowest note when we should be thinking from the highest note. And right now, I'm going to show you how the octave systematic approach solves that. I'm going to do what Mick Goodrick told us to do, which was play a major scale on 1 string. Okay, cool. Now I'm going to play a song, something we probably recognize. Okay, that's totally fine. Now with most guitar players, what they'll do is they'll try to cram as many chords as they possibly can based off of what the chord is doing, not necessarily what the melody is doing. Now this is good and bad. If we're not caring about the melody, we can end up doing all types of crazy things that maybe other guitar players and musicians will appreciate, but that's going to start shrinking how many people in our audience can actually understand what it is that we're doing. We're playing tons of notes, but we're not being understood. So what we'll do instead is we'll try to control a smaller set of notes so that way everyone can understand perfectly clearly. So for example, I'll play the exact same scale now in thirds. Now I'll play the exact same song again in thirds. I'm already implying chords based off of the third that I'm playing underneath the melody. And people are going to understand way more clearly what we're doing faster than trying to put in as many altered and color chords that we possibly can in substitutions. We don't have to do all of that. And this is based off of particular sets of ideas of Bill Evans, Ted Green, and Barry Harris. These guys controlled small sets of notes to make it sound like they were doing more when they actually weren't. They were just under control. And most guitar players it's not that we don't want control, is we want more notes. We kind of feel insecure that we don't have access to as many notes as piano players do. So we just cram and cram and cram and cram. We're not being taught how to control. But that leads us to the next idea. So if I'm playing my scale in thirds, like we just did, right? I can put the triad straight underneath. By putting a note in the middle between my first and my third, I can put the fifth there in a major, but I can also put a sixth there. And now I'm playing a minor. So now I can do two types of harmonies based off of the third that I already practiced. And I can interchange them now. So I can do like a more, say, sterilized. Now I can use the other harmony. And I can interchange them as I feel necessary. And this is important because we are now thinking about the harmony, the melody first, and then the harmony second, and everyone will understand perfectly well what it is that we're doing. And it's going to sound very, very nice. We don't have to put in as many crazy notes as we want. We can imply all those crazy things and still be heard clearly because we're controlling the notes more than just cramming more notes in there. And that brings me to Barry Harris. Now that I have what I call traditional theory down, I'm going to start doing Barry Harris stuff. So in his case, so now that I'm using that type of harmony, and then I can start to change those diminished chords as I see fit. I can do whatever I want to with it. I'm still basing our chord off the melody. And the more I can do that, the more songs I can do, the better I'm going to sound. I can also do this while I'm comping because I know which note's going to matter more than anything else, and then I can build the harmony underneath it. It's not that I'm forgetting about all the other grips or how these chords move to each other, but I'm thinking more along the lines of how I know things are going to sound more than how many things I can cram into the chord. And you're going to notice as you progress more into this system, the more control you have over it and the less work you actually need to do. Hopefully, this actually helped you out a little bit with your guitar playing life. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, or death threats, leave them in the comment section down below. Like and subscribe so that way I can actually give you more information on how this system works, any other system. All right, take it easy, guys.